Thank you for joining this episode of Real Talk, Real Trust. Our episode for today is AI for developers, what's hype and what is real. I'm joined by our head of product, Freddy, and our CEO, Zain. The promise of this podcast series is that we talk about the things that help you build long lasting relationships with customers and prospects, and at the heart of that is trust. Building these experiences that are going to create that long lasting trust are driven by developers. And so at the forefront of every developer's mind today is AI. So we're thrilled to have both of you on the podcast today. Freddie, you want to say a quick hello and just a bit about yourself and roll at dotCMS, then we'll go to you, Zain.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Freddy Montes. I'm head of products at dotCMS, and I'm also a AI first developer, if you want to call it like that.
Freddie, we'll dig into that more. Zain, to you.
Hi, hi again, I guess. Zain Ishaq, I'm the CEO at dotCMS. Um, not a AI developer. I come from the business world, spent 10 years in investment banking and then acquired dotCMS almost 4 years ago. So I would be contributing, the business side of things, plus, I guess, our AI vision and strategy.
At the helm of all things for AI that we're doing. Zain, thanks for being with us today. Before we get into specifics on AI for devs, what's hype, what's real, let's start with a little rapid fire, which is just meant to get our listeners engaged and have a little fun and see how efficient you can be with brevity, Freddie. So these are meant to be very short answers. Let's see if you can keep it within a sentence or two. What is your go-to dev tool at the moment, Freddie?
For sure.
Cursor. Zain, we're not going to ask you. We'll let you skip that one. Freddie, are you coding more or less, given that AI is everywhere?
I'm coding less, but bigger things.
Still within that sentence framework. Nice work, Freddie. What tech trend are you the most skeptical about as it pertains to developers at the moment?
Um, I will say agents.
Agents. Got it. Zain, I see a big smile on your face. What tech trend are you skeptical about at the moment?
Yeah, I laughed because that was absolutely my response too, and I thought it was super controversial, and but it wasn't, I suppose. So,
It is. It is controversial.
yeah. So again, my take is if you can build an agent that talks to itself 5 times before responding, doesn't mean that you have to, but you should.
And also,
Nice.
a lot of people are building workflows and calling them agents.
Very, it's the Wild West in terms of how things are categorized right now in the world of AI. So we're going to get into that pretty quickly. Freddie, let's start with this idea that AI, when we talked before, AI isn't coming for developers. It's coming with them, right? It's going to enhance the work that they do. It's the role of the developer is going to be as critical as ever. But I guess before we get into that, as you think about AI in the developer experience, what's the lens that you're looking at when you evaluate all the different AI technologies that are out there to ensure that you're not buying into the hype, but you're finding the real value. So how are you evaluating new technology as it relates to the dev experience?
So I think that the 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 you need to clear your expectations on this. Like you can get a lot of value as long as you keep your expectations right and as long as you put the work. I think that the whole marketing around AI has been so big in terms of like just type 3 words and you got a 20 million ARR company. It's definitely not true. But a lot of people are buying into it, right? Especially in social media, people are like, clickbaiting and doing all those sort of things. But when you're trying to build real things that you're putting into real customer hands, especially enterprise level like we do, like it's not as easy as people are putting out. Like you gotta put a lot of work. Like you gotta collect the right context and you gotta put it out and you gotta understand your problems. That's super important. A lot of people miss that step, right? You really need to understand the problem so you can provide a solution, because at the end of the day, what you're actually doing is directing these tools in to solve
Uh,
your problems. But you need to understand your problem first. And you can use AI to understand your problems, by the way, which is really helpful. But not everybody's doing it that way. Everybody's like, oh, I'm going to throw this one liner and I'm just going to go sip a cup of coffee and, aim for the best. And then it doesn't work. And like, see, this doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. So I always try new things with that in mind. Like if I don't have a problem to solve, I don't go there.
I love it, Freddie. Yeah, it's basic principles in terms of how you use technology. That has to be a meaningful problem that you're solving for. And I think, being mindful of the hype and the level of effort that still goes into this, right? It's not a silver bullet. Zane, anything you want to add there, just in terms of how we are evaluating new AI capabilities for
Yeah.
our customers?
Yeah, no, maybe I'll bullet point this answer. So first and foremost, obviously, like Freddie said, don't chase novelty for its own sake. The deeper question is, again, the usefulness. Does it create leverage? Does it improve efficiency? Does it reduce friction? And lastly, and most importantly, I suppose, is it repeatable and scalable? One-off wonders, sure, it might be thrilling, but it's not useful. So that's really like a rough sketch on how we assess whether or not an idea is worth exploring, and then obviously building further.
Yeah, Zane, this the idea of a stable of AI tools, each doing their own unique thing, is something that's real that can become problematic very quickly and a distraction for the core things that a business needs to do and even that a developer needs to do. So, Freddie, I guess from your perspective, where is AI showing up in the day-to-day workflows of developers?
It depends of the level of the developer, right? So mid seniors developers are using AI mostly to generate code, right? So they go into Cursor, Copilot, and they just start prompting and like, tackling small problems, small tasks one at a time. Like, okay, let's update this function, let's validate this, let's handle this error, those sort of things, right? When you start going up and up in the ladder, you will see that AI in the software development lifecycle is going through more of the problem solving architecture side of things, not necessarily tied to code, right? That's how we use it at dotCMS, right? So we got the developers that are working on very specific features or problems, and you can see it every day, like with Cursor or Copilot or Cloud Code right now, like prompting like, hey, how this works. They use it a lot to help their code reviews. So we're having agents co-reviewing our code along with humans, right? And you can see them fighting in comments like, no, you're not right. I'm the one right, and all those sort of things. But that's the part, like iteration is always good. On my side, I do a lot of the research and the planning and the questioning, right? On is this the right problem to solve for .cms? And is this the right solution? And it's super easy now to compare our solutions with other competitor solutions, right? I really use this idea of synthetic users, like to validate think quick. So I have different type of user that acts as little assistants, and I start pitching them my solutions, and I ask them, "What do you think about that?" Right? And I got feedback, and then I go to real humans, and I go to UX and all those sort of things. But it's like one level above. I haven't even touched code, right?
Yeah.
When I touch code, it's more related to test ideas. And in that end, I use a lot of like Bolt or B0, all those sort of things that I put together. The prototypes that I show you guys for you to gather feedback from you, all the stakeholders, and like, hey guys, what do you think about it? Click it around, play with it, right? And that code, I don't even look at it. I just make it work. I don't care about that code, but it's code that I'm going to throw away at some point. It's just to show you the ideas, show you the solution. So just to summarize, it depends on the level,
Yeah.
in the different tools.
Yeah, Freddie, one of the things that I really love that you said there is this idea, the idea that you're honing in on is quality, right? Using AI to review code, using AI to test, using AI to ensure that what you are shipping is is going to be high quality. And what that translates to in an experience for the end user is that the tool works. The tool works as it should, and it works as efficiently as it should. And so instead of create the idea that AI is often there to help you create more, it's to help in many ways. It's there to help you deliver some of the current things better. And so that's a unique, I think, point of view. In addition to being able to test what should go into that, the code that you built that is better. So I really appreciate that perspective. I guess, what are some of the common misconceptions about AI being integrated into a dev's workflow? Like, what are the things that are sort of in the hype cycle at this time?
Like what we talk at the early of this, right? Is it's not free. It's not a free work, right? AI is not something that you install. It's not like, oh, I just give all my developers GitHub Copilot and then all of a sudden they have 50% extra productivity. It doesn't work like that. Like, you got to give them the tool, you got to train it, you got to work with them, you got to set the expectations right. And you got to make sure that they understand that they can try it and they can experiment with it. And that we are not expecting like they now are 10x developers just because we gave them GitHub Copilot. Like, when you frame it like that, you can see the developers like just testing these things and just make their work their own way, because every developer code differently. They attack problems differently. They change the order on how they're going to fix this problem, and they just adjust the AI tools into their own situation, which is great.
On that note, Freddie, what specific use cases have you seen successfully implemented at dotCMS for developers to date?
Planning. When we do planning together, we start throwing ideas that are not organized, and we start throwing edge cases that we can think of top of our head, and we discuss this. And when they just put everything either in a transcription or in a document, and then we said, okay, we need to clean this up and put it together in a way that we can follow up as a plan. We grab all that and then we put it through any of those chats assistant, and we prompt it and we give them context. Like, for example, we get all the documentation for .cms, we get it into a text. All the documentation from our SDKs and our APIs, open API specification, we throw everything at once and we said, okay, we're looking to solve this problem. Here are our ideas. Here are sort of the edge cases. Is there anything that we're missing? Like, what that thing, like looking for edge cases that we know that we miss. And they start listing all those edge cases, and then we put it into the document, and then we start reframing that. And at the end, we got a very good document that we can keep iterating over, because those documents, we call it design docs. Those documents are alive during the life cycle of the development. Like, every time we find something new, we put it there, right? And then that same document, we use it to fit it when we start like creating our issues, right? So we need to translate this into GitHub issues. We use GitHub issues to manage our work. So we use that document and we said, how can we split this into specific tasks that we can tackle one by one, and that every task provides some kind of value to the user, right? And again, I'm saying all this, and it sounds like everything comes out of the AI perfect, but it don't. It doesn't come out perfect, right? We grab it, we put it there, we iterate over. The human is always in the loop, making it better. But what it avoids this is like the blank page syndrome, where you don't know where to start. Like, this gives you a really, really good starting point that you can iterate over. So the whole planning cycle now it used to be only humans and developers and me as a product manager. And now is the same team with a couple of different AI assistants helping us along the way, and helping us not only to frame the feature, but to understand what are we missing in this solution? What are we not looking at?
Yeah, Freddie, it's the way that you talked about sort of finding the blind spots in terms of what we're creating via AI, and then using those inputs as a baseline, not necessarily as the comprehensive set of things that could come up, is, I think, an amazing use case from a product and engineering perspective. Zain, is there anything you might want to add? I know that you're looking at sort of both the full product and engineering lifecycle, as well as the solution, how it's delivered to the customer in terms of successful AI use cases. and how it's integrated within the dotCMS solutions.
Oh, no, absolutely. I guess one of the most effective ways for us has been customer support. We use AI to, help classify and route tickets faster and more accurately. We also use it to assist support engineers by generating draft responses or surfacing, similar historical tickets. That has been a great unlock. Support is something that is challenging, especially when there's a 2-hour turnaround that we want to get back to the customer with. So it's been hugely impactful. Another area is documentation. Obviously AI is helping a lot. Summarize, clean, organize again large swaths of internal and public facing content. And, to Freddie's point, as far as developers lifecycle goes, I believe the next phase would be testing. I think that could be super impactful in terms of what is the impact of code changes, and it will help that process. And then lastly, where we believe it might be more impactful, and we're still kind of contemplating it, is the just the dashboards for product metrics. How we're using it, telemetry, and those kind of data that we can capture and then obviously analyze and learn from and improve product going forward. Those are the areas which we're still kind of um, I wouldn't say testing, but contemplating.
Yeah. Zane, that's great. I appreciate the context from support to product utilization. I think those are topics that are good for developers to know because they're adjacent to the work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? How the product is being utilized and the feedback on the product. And hopefully that some of those things are coming together over time, right? I'd like to just pivot a little bit here and talk about the future of AI in the developers world. So, Freddie, maybe you can just share what you think um, the core responsibilities are going to look like for a developer in the next 12 to 18 months, and how that might shift with AI.
So I think that the UX of a developer, which already is changing, the fact that you have on your IDE literally like a coworker that you can work with, like a pair programming in real time with another pseudo developer, is really powerful, right? So the whole idea, like you are seeing your code, this software AI assistant is seeing your code, and you working together, and you can gather feedback from one another. That's already a UX that changed. So what I'm seeing next that is happening right now is the whole idea of orchestrating agents, right?
Oh,
And the developer is going, like, whether they like it or not, they're going to a one step level and being less like a IC contributor and being more like a architect or team lead, which they orchestrate different agents, right? So, and Cloud Code, which is gaining popularity lately, allows you to do that. You are not, again, in an IDE, you are in your terminal. And what you can do is you can spin up different agents with different purposes to solve the same problem, right? And if the problem is big, you need to understand which type of agent do you want for each step of the process. So one example that I was doing the other day, I spin up 5 agents to solve a problem. 3 of them were the implementators, they were writing the code, and 2 of them were the senior code reviewers. So and you can see them literally in the terminal working together. So the first thing that they do is they split out tasks and they assign tasks to each other. You can see each one of them like tackling that task. And then the code reviewer looking at the result code and saying, oh, you should do this the other way.
wow.
And you, as a orchestrator, you are there making sure that things coming out really good. I see that a lot of that is already here, to be honest. And I think that it's going to be a lot of that. Like, I see you as an IC, your work is going to be orchestrating agents.
That is a huge shift because in essence, it multiplies the workforce. Um,
What what I do like about it is that allows the software engineer to focus on the problem and know the code, not necessarily on the code. right?
Yep.
So you go one step above and you need to understand the problem to achieve these kind of results and to put together this orchestration. If you don't know how to frame the problem and how to like find a solution for it, you will not get success out of it.
Yep. And it's going to be an interesting balance then, I'd imagine, for software developers. I'm just curious your thoughts on this. The depth that they will need to know the code versus the depth that they'll need to know the problem. And that feels like that is a scale that is going to change over time, correct?
Yeah. So there is a lot of people saying the code will not be the primary language to communicate with a computer, like has been for years, but English is going to be the primary programming language. I I can see that could potentially happen in the future. I don't see it right now. There's still a lot of code out there that the LLMs, no matter how good they are at this point, they are not able to resolve the problems within that code. But what definitely like the skill set of what is going to be considered a good software developer is changing very, very quick.
Yeah. Maybe we'll flip that a little bit from the skill set to the areas where they might work, especially in our world of content management. First, they need to migrate. They need to architect. They need to build. They need to optimize. Right. When you think about what role the AI is going to play and the software engineer is going to play in a traditional kind of replatforming of a CMS, where do you think there's the most impact in the short term?
Migrations, right? One of the biggest problems of migration is I have structured data in this way, in this format, or maybe I don't even have structured data, which we've seen before. Like I got my web pages that I built 100 years ago, and now I want to put it into dotCMS, but they are not structured in any way. AI is really good taking data in one format and put it in the format that you asking to, right? It's not perfect, but it gets you a long way. Before you got to write a huge script that takes that data and turn it into structured data that then you can put into your CMS. I think migrations are, I mean, you can potentially already do that. You can grab a web page and say, I want to turn this web page on a structured HTML into a content type with specific fields and then create all the content that you need. So I definitely think migrations are the biggest thing. The other piece of our puzzle is content optimization. Like when you have a lot of data about your content, right? Behavioral data on how the users interact with your content, and you have access to external data like current trends and your competitors or whatever, you can use that context because at the end, context is like the most important things right now for AI. You can use that content to generate new content, like literally very specific sales driven content.
That's super powerful. just
It
the
is.
just the transfer of assets and essentially updating or optimization of those assets and streamlining that, because before that the transfer of assets was a huge operational burden with a lot of resources, and then the updating of assets took quite a bit of time and brain power in order to do that. I guess maybe one other area I'd be curious how you think AI is going to impact is integrations, as well as things like SDKs that are going to enable sort of the two things you just talked about.
There are still a few balls in the air on that area for the fact that so AI companies are looking into how do we provide context to the LLM to perform operations on external systems, given like a CMS is an external system, right? So if you say to a LLM, if you said to ChatGPT, create a piece of content in .cms, they're like, I don't even know what .cms it is. I don't know what is a piece of content. Like they don't know anything. You need to give them all the information in order to do that. So the MCP, the Model Context Protocol,
Uh-huh.
that Anthropics proposed, is gaining traction. And what this allows you is to connect your external system to provide context to your LLMs, right? Right now, you can use it with Cloud Desktop I'm pretty sure the ChatGPT desktop is going to have support really soon as a client. And you can use it with all the IDEs that are AI driven, like Cursor, VS Code, Windsurf, Cloud Code, you name it. You can connect NCP servers. And right now, at this point, there are NCP servers for everything. You got NCP servers for dotCMS that we recently launched. But you got NCP servers for like Figma. You got NCP servers for current documentation. You got NCP servers for your file system, right? And you can hook them all together and you can set like, go and find this document in my document folder and upload it to dotCMS as a structured content. And the LLM will do all the intrinsic kind of like, oh, I need to grab this document, transform it into structured data in this schema that .cms support, because we're giving them with the NCP server the tools for the LLM to understand the schemas on .cms and do that. So my guess is right now, NCP servers are going to be that missing piece that it will provide the context that the LLM needs to do these integrations, because the external systems are not going away, but the LLM doesn't have the capacity to just learn every external system API to be able to perform tasks. So the external system can use this NCP to give that context and to provide these tools.
Yeah.
And then once you have that, you can orchestrate agents to do any sort of task with it.
Yep. Freddie, at that point, when the MCPs are in place, the model is utilizing quite a bit of data, right? And at that point, there could be some commercial implications, in terms of how those models are used. So I guess I'm curious your thoughts around the use of open source models versus closed models and how you see that evolving over the course of the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months as well.
Yeah. In our world, in our enterprise world or regulated industry world, it's really important that we can provide all the AI tools within .cms with a lot of governance. And the way to do that is that we need to allow .cms to use any AI provider that we can, especially models that are served within specific clouds like, Google Cloud or Azure from Microsoft or Bedrock from Amazon, that our enterprise companies can just hook their own providers and then use their own models, even their own private models, right? So that's for us is number one. There is no way that we can cheap AI features without having that in place yet, because a lot of regulated industries will not be able to use the standalone open AI model, where they're going to have to send their data or some of their data and their prompts to a server that they don't have visibility or observability on. They will never do that,
Yep.
right? The things with open source models is that they are not necessarily hard to run, but they might be a little bit expensive to run. And to be honest, they are not yet that as good as the proprietary one, right? The one that is the open source model that you can see that is gaining traction is Llama from Meta. But other than that, there are a few, but they are not good enough for enterprise level companies.
Yeah.
I do believe that, as usual, a really big open source model is going to be available for people, for customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great feedback. Zane, I know you studied the market on this as well, just the idea of closed models versus open models and what you think the future is going to look like.
I mean, from a .cms perspective, obviously our roots are in open source. We have had a community version for the longest time, but now, we have basically source available model under our new business source license with the BSL. The intention there was twofold. Primarily, obviously, we want the community to benefit and obviously adopt. It's free for anybody, with less than $5 million in revenue or budget. But more so, I think it's about empowering developers to build on top of .cms without, having the black box limitations. It gives them full visibility into how things work and the flexibility to customize, deeply, especially important when you're integrating, to Freddy's point, third-party AI tools or building bespoke solutions. Um, yeah, I think for us, we have open source roots, and we tend to stick to them, and we encourage the same for our enterprise customers.
Awesome. Thank you, Zane. Yeah, the open source roots is a critical part in just making sure that one, there's availability for folks to understand what type of tools are at their fingertips, but also connectivity. Those are sort of the two pillars of open source platforms that I know we've lived for a long time. I'd like to transition here as we begin to wrap up for folks to hear what dotCMS is doing on this front. I know we've talked a lot conceptually, but Freddie, maybe we'll start with you. What's dotCMS doing today and in the near future to make AI more usable and impactful for devs?
Right now, we're putting together support for all the models out there, given open source or closed, but especially for different providers that you can trust, right? That our users can trust. That's the number one step. The other thing that we're doing in order to provide very specific context for our tools, for our AI tools, is our analytics feature, right? Which is going to collect behavioral data from your users, and then you're going to be able to use that data to fed your models and then perform different tasks, from generating content and generating images to suggest new content, to plan, to maybe sunsetting some specific content, to have content that it could be compliance to your specific regulations, right? Always with the data in front of you. That's, for me, is the key part. Like, it's not, AIs can be, like I was saying before, AI can be as good as the context that you fed it with. Like, a model by itself, without your context, without your voice and your brand, will not do so much good for your company and for your use. So we're very focused into that. And on top of that, we're building our AI assistant, or dot copilot, that the whole idea is that is with the user across all the sections of that CMS. No matter what task that you're doing, you can always have this copilot assistant helping you with that, given that it's generating content, generating images, or analyzing your data, and try to maybe come up with new ideas of audiences you haven't even considered, given the amount of data that you have. So it's that, and we're building that with a lot of governance and compliance, right? There is no way that we can do this without governance and compliance. What we wanted to do, or pillars are like, everything that you do with AI should be easy to roll back and should be easy to audit. Like, everybody should understand, like, okay, we work on AI with this, or, oh, it didn't work, we need to roll back it as soon as possible, and all those sort of things. And there's always a human in the loop. Like, we already have that embedded in that CMS. We got our permissions or roles, we got our workflows, like all that. It gives you that governance. And now the AI is going to pipe into that, which means that you can create even AI users within your dotCMS with specific roles and specific permissions that only allow them to perform specific tasks or execute specific workflows, right? So everything that dotCMS do really, really well for enterprise level business, like governance and permissions, all that, AI is going to be piping it.
That's exciting, Freddie. Just the idea of even, an agent supporting a workflow or an agent helping with permissioning of new users. Those are things that, especially even in the migration and implementation phase, getting those things set up they're burdensome, because there's a human need, and so it sounds like there's a lot of automation that will go into from when the dev starts building to when the site launches. Yeah. So that's great. Zane, anything else that you would comment on in terms of where dotCMS is going with our AI tools, specifically around devs and IT leaders?
I guess Freddie covered it mostly. We obviously think from the whole content lifecycle perspective, from content planning to then creation, then delivery, and then optimization, and then personalization, and then obviously governance runs through it. So to Freddie's point, your AI is as good as data is. So we are currently focused on improving that data layer that will, just improve your AI across all these tools and workflows. So from a strategy perspective and vision perspective, we are at the highest level. We're focused on how can we help our customers clean data, bring that data into the CMS, and obviously then, have more context-aware AI supporting you through the content lifecycle that I just described, and which also Freddie was mentioning, as whether it's as a co-pilot or a picture generator or a text generator, what have you.
Great. And I'll just give a quick plug for the recent product webinar that Freddie did and his team drove that has some of these cool new AI features that both Zane and Freddie just talked about. I guess the last thing, a few other things that are on my mind before we wrap today. I guess the first one is for you, Freddie. What advice would you give a developer who wants to experiment with AI in the next 30 days, the next 60 days? They're like, okay, I've been putting this off and now it's time to get my hands dirty. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, my first advice is experiment, actually. Experiment with the tools, right? Think about tasks that you do that are repetitive, that you don't enjoy too much doing, and think how the AI can fit into your workflow. Like give it a small task first. Like try this. Give them to write a little unit test for a specific component and see what you get out of that. When you're doing code reviews, if you have a doubt, ask it, what do you think about this? Because I think that this shouldn't work as this. And wait for its answer and see how it can help you to even learn. Ask the AI about your own code. Like those little things will open your mind and see what are the capabilities, and you're going to naturally go deeper and deeper into this experimentation. But just try it, keep your expectations low, and just go for it. This is not going anywhere.
Yep. What's the flip of that, Freddie? Like what could they expect that would be the downside, right? You said, hey, they're just their mind is going to be expanded. They're going to see all these new possibilities. What might they be disappointed with if they plug in an AI tool and start to use it to review their code?
If you ask for like too big tasks that are too big, it's probably gonna fail.
Oh.
And you're gonna be like, oh, this doesn't work. Like if you ask it like, okay, let's do this migration, you need to touch 90 files. Yeah, it's not gonna do a really good job, right? And the other piece is like, if you trust the code, if you trust blindly the code that AI is generating, you're gonna hit a wall really soon. Like you need to look at that code, and more important, don't ship any code that you don't understand. Use the AI to understand it. If you finally don't understand it, just change it in a way that you understand it. But don't ship code that you don't understand.
That's great. Freddie, how about for you, Zane? Maybe I'll let you hold the mic for the last response. What, in your experience and in a lot of the due diligence you've done, have been the drawbacks or the gotcha moments when you've got deep into utilizing AI for a variety of different workflows and use cases?
I guess I'll mention two challenges with AI and then a couple of, I guess, remedies. The challenges are the hallucinations are real. It's prone to errors. It's just going to happen. And the second is when you're kind of automating things and relying on external APIs, the latency can also be a challenge. So these are like challenges that you have to work with. And I guess the remedies would be to what Freddie has said over and over again through this podcast. Always have a human in the loop, make sure it is auditable. I think those are the two main things when you're kind of architecting. And the second is, yeah, don't over automate, or at least not immediately.
Yeah.
Experiment, learn, and then obviously take what actually makes sense, and leave the rest, I suppose.
Awesome. Awesome. Zane, Freddie, that's going to conclude our time for today. Thanks for joining this episode of Real Talk, Real Trust, where we talked about AI for developers, what's hype, what's real. I think our listeners have gotten some great takeaways and had a little bit of fun along the way. So thank you to our listeners for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ryan. Thanks, Freddie.